Check one, check two.
Okay, so Amay Elizabeth, and I'm originally from New Orleans, and that in and of itself is odd because or unique, I would say. I am seventh generation, so I come from a very interesting kind of aristocratic bloodline of French Louisianans. They all came from France, and I've recently done like history on that. And my grandfather was a Freemason, and my uncles, and I'm certain that they still are. They are in politics and construction in Louisiana, like not just like massive construction, like industrial type in construction. And it's a very prominent noble family on my mother's side. And so when I've done some research into that, there's a really popular flat earth astrologer on that's online, and I did a session with her, and she said it's a vampirical there's a part of the lineage is vampires. Is that true? I'm not sure. But my grandfather, he was a hypnotist. He founded the Institute of Hypnosis in New Orleans, and he was a painter. I've had one of my uncles is a state senator twice of Louisiana, and one was a governor twice and wrote the song "You Are My Sunshine." If you know that song.
Yep.
So there's a unique and generals, and so. And then my father was red hair and blue eyed, which is only 2% of the population. And the astrologer has said that that's a draconian lineage. Also, it's a very unique, interesting background. However, so another part of this is that I've been in the private jet industry for the last 2 decades, and I've essentially, the they that we always talk about in these videos, the elites. So I've flown them for the last 2 decades. And my family they owned an airport and had private jets. So when I was young, I was on them. And it was a very, very hard competitive job to get, but I knew that I would get it. And I've been doing it a long time. And I actually believe that this job and this background has opened up something for me in the last couple of years. So, which is why I started a channel.
Awesome. So I don't want to interrupt you, although I have tendency to do that. So I apologize.
Please do.
My family is also from the European side as well. And I have to ask you, do you know your blood type?
God, why did you ask? I'm pretty, well, no, that could be wrong. I believe it's a negative. I know that.
Why do you think that because I thought mine was a negative also until I tested it, and actually it was. But why do you think that it's a RH negative?
Well, I was in a pretty tragic car accident. I remember my mother, she couldn't give me her blood, and I don't remember all the details, but I know that there's a negative. She had an unusual blood type. Now, do we follow the line of our parents? I should check my blood type. Do you know that? I'm not sure.
I do know mine because actually I believe it does have a significant factor in terms of a lot of things. And you mentioned the vampire aspect of that too. The RH negative bloodline traces back to that. And the reason it is because it's often iron deficient. So the iron in blood is very healthy for RH negative people to have. I'm sure that you're not a vegetarian. If you're RH negative, there's no way you could be. You'd be, very energy lethargic.
Right.
You really have to have red meat and iron in your diet to function properly, or at least, in specific instances you do. So I think that's a lot of where that comes from. Why the vampire stuff is out there, I don't know. I think there's probably some truth to the folklore or to the myths of vampires. But I think for the majority of that, it is because of the blood,
it's the blood.
and the iron deficiency.
It is. Yes, definitely. We know now, and I'll be careful what I say, but we know now. I mean, we know that there's rituals. We know that there's an engagement of blood, and there's something to this. And was it in history? Of course. So I hate that, and that it's still going on. But yes, so it's very possible in my lineage, given everything I've learned, it's possible. I don't know. I think it's been overly fantasized, and obviously for novel reasons. To
Yeah.
Anne Rice, and Anne Rice actually, her Anne Rice and her family are we were one of my lines was directly on the same in the same. It's called the Irish Channel of New Orleans. So one of my lines, although mine were not Irish, they were actually the Black Irish, which is from Spain, the Armada. And so they all lived in the same community, and so the Rices, her family had a store near one of my lines, one of my family. So is it all connected? I mean, maybe. How much of history is real? Do you know what I mean? What we're told, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've been looking a little bit into the Satan's Little Season and the thousand years taken off of that as well, and the history of the buildings and the architecture and things like that. It seems to make some sense. I'm not really sure what's been fabricated and what hasn't been, but for sure. I mean, I've talked to people that say we only have like 250 years of history, and before that it was all made up. I'm not sure about that necessarily, but I think that it's an interesting theory to have. When you talk about what's been documented, I've tried to go back through, you know, the oldest cities and look for tombs. And I think that it's very interesting also that, if you look at resets or potential resets in conspiracy theory of that, we seem to be pretty dumb as far as what's been documented. And the reason I think for that is because they see stone tablets, or they see hieroglyphs or whatever it might be written on stone. And then until you realize that the the way that we document stuff now is going towards that as well. I mean, we've gone from stone and paper up to books, and now we're on online stuff. And pretty soon, the way that we're writing history again is going to all be offline. And so the only way that we'll have to preserve ourselves through resets or through cataclysms will be the things that we've chiseled in, and the monoliths and things like that. So it's pretty interesting to get into that. We won't spend too much time on it, but if you have any comments for what I just talked about with
Well,
that.
one of my yeah, oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but one of my comments or my immediate thoughts is, I think a lot the reset is what comes to mind for me. So what if I mean, it just doesn't make sense that think about, in your short lifetime, all this has transpired over, do you know what I mean, from when you were a
Yeah.
kid, which I'm going to guess that you're, like, I graduated in 92. So I was 80s and 90s generation, and think about how everything has changed. We were much more analog. I mean, obviously we had TVs and so, but I'm saying, like, everything has become so synthetic and artificial. And a lot of times I just think that there's some sort of overlay, something is different here than it is when we were kids. and
Absolutely.
and who's not to say that the simulation or whatever, or a lot of times the way I think of it is holographic. It's a holographic world. And who's not to say that that didn't start 200 years ago? Who's not to say that it didn't start the moment you were born? I
Yeah.
mean, we are here in some sort of something that's becoming, and actually quite fast now, more and more synthetic, more, even just from everything. I mean, from fabrics to food, things taste different here. Time moving crazy. Like, there's so many indications to me. Even the Tartarian thing. Sometimes I'm like, how do we know that that's not just part of part of the holographic field? How do we
Part of
know that?
the foundation.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that, because it's
Absolutely.
always, those buildings are always government buildings, education buildings, royalty, elites, like they're always used by the elites. So to me, that's intended. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess from here, how did you get here? How did you get to the part where you're speaking about this now, or the I know there's probably been a few years since you've been doing this, but how did you? Was there a breaking point that you just said, I guess I'm awake to this now, or how did you get here to this point?
well, hmm. I've had a couple of experiences in my life that there was a drowning incident when I was 8. A couple of car accidents. In flying, I've had one emergency landing, and some moderate turbulence, which is not severe, but it can be really bad. So I've had some situations in my life that I've wondered if it's all if I've entered overlays, if I've entered. I know this is going to sound, but I've wondered if my consciousness actually entered another dimension. In other words, I don't think death is what they tell us. I don't think death is any. I don't think it's at all what they tell us. I think it's slipping into consciousness, into another reality, and that could be where I am now. And those of us that have real souls, that are real spiritual beings, I think that that's very possible. That's where we are. So something opened up for me, especially a couple of years ago. I would say it started about 2 or 3 years ago. I started seeing, and it's not just language. It isn't just language, but I will say it started with language. And actually, my background in my university degree in New Orleans is English, is linguistics, etymology. My minor was rhetoric and communications, etymology, and so I do have a background in language. My father wrote a couple books, and one of them was on the Anunnaki, actually.
Oh wow.
And he was a very strange, unique person. He was a professor as well. And so anyway, I grew up around a lot of words and books and reading. I'm a huge reader. And so this thing with words, something started happening where it was almost like dyslexia. I would see a sign. Do you want me to give you some examples? I'll give you some. I
I
have
think I know where
no.
you're going, but go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
You do? Okay, I have notebooks filled with them. And like I would see, let's say I would see the word sacred. Automatically I would know that's scared also. Let's say I see the word silver. I know that that's sliver. Let's take anything, a brand name. Let me like Venmo. I know that's venom. I mean, I started seeing everything upside down and backwards. I started realizing that symbols, that vowels were interchangeable, and it did start happening when I was flying. And it was almost like an AI implement. I have wondered, because all of a sudden I knew the earth was flat. All of a sudden, and I would look down at 40,000 feet, and keep in mind, private jets go higher than
Mhm.
commercial. And I'm on a ferry a lot of times, which a ferry means no passenger. So it's just me in the cabin, right? I've just dropped off some Hollywood producer, let's say. And I'm in the plane alone, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, this is a computer. I'm in a computer. This is a computer grid. There are angles. These are angles. These are symbols that are connected to the sky. And I knew everything. It was a simulation. I can't explain it. And the letters, I get bombarded with words and letters. And it's not my first thing, that because I'm actually a painter too, so I paint. And anything that I'm doing, they just come to me, and they'll come to me at night. And sometimes I'm aggravated with it because it's nonstop. It's like an AI implement. I've wondered, because I think this is an AI. I think we live in AI. I think this is an artificial construct that we are in. And when I was flying, everything started hitting me. And I don't know if that's where it started, maybe, because I do fly the people that the household names. I mean, I can say who I've flown, because that's not, I'm trying to be kind of incognito.
Mhm.
But I mean,
Yep.
I've flown Warren Buffett, I've flown all the Gates Senior, and all of Hollywood. I just flew a few weeks ago Taylor Swift's producers. Like, I've flown all of them. And I don't know what happened, or if it has to do more with or if it's a combination of the background of the bloodline. Is it the frequency? Because the astrologer said I had a certain frequency. This is what she said, where I could be in the capacity of the elites based on my frequency, and not everyone can be. Now,
Okay,
I
so
don't.
you said like four things I didn't want to stop you on. All right, so let me see if I
Okay.
can remember a couple of them, and then I'll tell you my flying story, which it could be a frequency of the depth of the atmosphere or
Yep.
anything.
Yep.
I don't.
Yep.
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Okay, so you mentioned flat Earth. We'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
Um, what did you say before that? I guess
And
we can start with flat Earth. That's fine.
okay.
So what have you seen or heard from either pilots, or have you heard anyone? Have you heard any elites or anyone who you would consider has access to different information? Have you heard of anyone saying anything to you or questioning the realm that we live in? Because I agree with you, although I don't want to be put into a box. I don't ever want to say that I'm a flat earther. That's just silly. Not to say that it's not, but it's silly because we are in a realm. We're not in a globe. We're not in a flat plane. Right? We're in kind of all those things. So I guess my question to you is, um, people often ask pilots if you've seen curve or you've seen, if it's flat or whatever it is. Have you heard anyone say anything otherwise to you? Mention anything?
Well, it's usually myself and just the pilots, because when you're on private planes, it's not like a commercial crew. It's just us. So I'm the only flight attendant with two pilots. So you spend a week with them, and you live with them essentially. You're traveling everywhere. So there are some that I've opened up with. There
Have they
is
mentioned?
one, but I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
I was gonna. So I thought you were taking a second break. Have they said anything to you as far as that, or when you did you ask them questions about, what their thoughts are? Because obviously we just see things, we experience things, but we don't really know around how high you
Well,
could possibly go.
I will give you okay, I will give you one example of something that struck me a couple years ago. That in the flight deck or cockpit, there is a label on the controls on the computer hardware system, and it says fly. How does it says as a stationary plane.
Yeah.
And I've seen it on their manuals, because I have a unique position different than commercial flight attendants. I sit with them. I'm in the flight deck. So I'm the third crew member. So they, in their paperwork, they have these big manuals, and I've seen it. And I would say, going back in time in my head, I can remember thinking, well, that's strange. When I was like, we were
Yeah.
all at one time, right? And I
Yeah.
was like, well, that's strange. Why would they? And something started hitting me. Now, I'm going to be honest, there's a couple times I've said things where they were like, "Well, what are you talking?" I remember one pilot was like, "Well, that's true. We're taught that way just for navigational reasons and aerodynamics," and gave some very brainwashed, but I've only,
Indoctrined.
right, right, very
Yeah, it was
like
an
in, yeah, yeah. So they're indoctrinated. Um, a lot of time pilots can be like doctors. They're on a download, and I know that there are some out there, and they have been honest in my job, in my world, and they've been kind of shunned by the groups. It's almost like the left and the right, let's put it that way. So, I have had some experiences, yes, where I've talked to a couple, but it's weird because it's still my job, so I have to kind of be careful with some of them. So, but yes, I've had a couple conversations. There are a few that I've known. And another thing is with that, you said, have I ever, and like, let's say the passengers, I've wondered also sometimes, like flying the elites, if let's say we do have uh, tele telepathy. Let's say the frequency has radiated to me. I mean, I'm in a confined space at 40,000 feet. Sometimes I've wondered because I'm like, why am I having these thoughts? Like,
Mhm.
it's strange. Things are hitting me that are the real truth. The nature of our reality, in other words, has hit me. And sometimes it's also been when I'm not flying as well, but some sort of portal has opened where I feel like I get bombarded with messages, and it started with flying, but it's all now, it's all the time. So I just started writing in notebooks, just compiling everything because I started a book that not an AI book, like a real book. so so I would just have a place for everything. But it can be very overwhelming, you know. It's very, it's like you're getting messages constantly.
Yeah, I think that there's some kind of a, I don't want to use the typical term, the veil is thinner up there, but I had that that I don't need, I hate using the typical downloads and words like that because it's just it is different. But if you fly through a storm, which I'm sure you have, and you get like these feelings or these spidey senses or whatever it might be, that things aren't what you're seeing or what you're looking at, something's different. Um, Probably about 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, me and my wife were flying through a storm, and I got hit with this. If our plane went down, but our perspective was that we didn't see it go down, everyone else is outside of this aircraft, said that it crashed and we all passed away. And then I started looking at that and playing with that a little bit about, in my past where I've reacted to things that didn't seem possible that I got out of a situation unscathed or unharmed or whatever it might be. Then I would go down. I said that on another podcast. I think with Rob from Typical Skeptic, and somebody mentioned quantum immortality. Never even knew what the hell that was. And then I start going down these things that go a whole nother way, a whole nother rabbit hole that we don't really know what they're called or how to formulate them. But I keep running into them. I run into all of these things that are things that I have no technical training on or word specific or I've seen nothing about them, but I keep hitting them in different tangents. So when you said that about the either the veil or when you get higher, you kind of go into a different mental frequency or state. 100%, I agree with that. I don't know if it's lower up there or if it's a way that our frequency can get passed through, that we can kind of get a transmission, even if it's thoughts or like you said, telekinesis or telepathy or whatever. That it's definitely different, and I don't know what that means for our frequency and thought pattern, but you get those a lot. And once you start tuning into those things, you can almost get them at will. You
Oh,
just lock
absolutely.
into them.
But say, like, for example, like I have one, okay, let's say I would be on a flight, and let's say I'm flying someone who does know the nature, the true nature of our reality, who we are, where we come from, what we're doing here. Let's say they know quantum immortality, for example. Let's say they know these things, that we're on a flat plane. What I'm saying is I knew something in me was perceiving or picking up on things. And I had that ability at a young age too. And I was told in my family that we had like an aunt that we had ESP. But I do believe those that have real souls that have done this matrix many times, we do have ESP, and that's not like psychic. That's these superpowers that we innately have, and if you have a real soul, I think you have it, and that's why you, for example, like you're receiving the messages, these, and the thoughts aren't our own. I think you know that. Like they're not. They're coming from somewhere else. Do you feel like I feel like they're coming from? That's why I wondered if maybe when I was in the air and on the, maybe I was picking up because that's where it started, but it's never stopped. And it's even gotten more and more intense. The scale of intensity is huge, where when I'm going to sleep, I'm getting them and I'm understanding everything much more. And quantum immortality, virtually, that is like, that means that you don't die.
Yeah, you're
Right?
jumping. Yeah, your consciousness will jump, and
Yes. Yes.
the observer effect, or the observed reality, is not necessarily
You.
is it objective or subjective. It's I get them confused when I'm speaking about it at a term, but the reality that we're in um, collectively is always it could be altered. So my reality could be something different, like a Mandela effect kind of thing. Although I don't want to hijack that term either. But you touched on yeah. So quantum immortality is basically your consciousness goes somewhere else and keeps living. You'll never experience death. And Anthony
Mm-hmm.
Peake talks about that a lot. And I think that
Who
there
does?
was Anthony Peake.
Anthony Peake. Oh,
He's a
the writer who wrote about that you don't die.
experiment.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
I did. I have his book. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're gonna go like all kinds of tangents here.
Okay.
Uh, you mentioned reincarnation, or you mentioned thoughts
Yes.
not being of your own. Again, I'm sure that what I'm saying is not my own 100% mine, and I've not heard it somewhere else. But the Akashic field, or the field that we have are able to tap into, I think that can explain a lot of things. Give me your thoughts about reincarnation and the soul trap, because they're kind of connected
Right.
with what you were just referring to as far as reincarnation and being here in this realm.
Well, sometimes I say reincarceration,
Mhm.
but not because we're not beautiful, loving, but because of the
The
suffering and
overlay.
environment we're in. Right. The overlay, which has nothing to do with us. So,
Well,
just
we don't know that, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
well, what I mean is, if you're a good, I'm talking about the suffering and the bad. That's all I meant. Sorry, that's, I should have elaborated on that. Not, but it does have to do with us. They do need us. They do need us to uphold the system, right? So, think about, like, how you just were saying how it's this collectiveness. I think you use the conscious. So think about this. This baffles me. The fact that you refer to yourself as I, like when you talking about Ken, you're saying I in any situation, right? But I'm also saying I. The guy
Mhm.
next to you is saying I. Why are we all calling ourselves I? Do you know what I'm
There are
saying?
experiences, but yeah, yeah.
Right, but it's actually, to me, it's a little bit demoting. It's a little bit we really should be referring to ourselves as more of the third, as you should be calling yourself Ken thinks this, like children do.
Mhm. In the third
That
person.
it makes much more, but when they've grouped us all together, and when I say they, I mean, yes, I do think there are controllers of the realm. I've been in their presence. I do think that they have a huge influence on our, yeah.
Do you think that, I mean, you've seen and looked in their eyes? I think that we've often said that the souls, or the eyes, are the window of the soul. Do they have souls? Do you believe in speaking with them?
Okay, I'll try to be a little careful because that's why I'm kind of incognito, but I'll be a little careful. But I will say a recent experience. Let's see, how can I say this? Here's one experience. There's a very famous guy that, well, okay. Okay, so I flew a person who is Elon Musk, okay? And without saying too much, I'll say I was with someone in his, that's a big part of his life. I think he's got several girlfriends or wives, I don't know, and their children. And so I have I have been around him, but only briefly, and this wasn't too long ago. This was like Easter. So there are certain people that I have been around and that I have engaged with and talked to, that, let's just say, if you were to say to me, are they human? I couldn't say what they are, but I would have to, no, there's
You would
something
check the
different.
other box. So, okay,
I
so
would check the other box.
the other box. Yep. So I think there's a lot of things that we can talk about as far as that goes. I'm firmly on the camp right now, and again,
Okay.
that could change because I mold my
Change your mind.
theories and my formulas all the time, that we're all vessels, and that
Yes.
potentially an entity could come into our consciousness and hijack us if we do
Yes.
not have a vesseled and tethered soul. There's a lot what I just said right there, but if you have sovereignty over your soul, they can't do that, in my opinion. Now, I don't know how many people, or percentage wise, has sovereignty or have declared it or just have it. Their awareness is sovereign. Then I think that some entities, some people, some things, whether it's AI or whether it's a passed on soul or whatever, there's a lot of different ways we can go with that. But I think they can occupy these vessels, and I think that a lot of clones are being put out there into these NPCs. Basically, I think we're almost in like some kind of a farm where there's very few souled sovereign spirits here, and they, whoever they might be, could jump into any of those vessels and experience things through their point of view without saying that they're non-human or they're demonic or they're something else. I haven't formulated a hypothesis on those yet, but I think that we all are vessels. I think everything's a vessel. I think everything's a vessel here in that it's simulated. But if you wanted to, astral travel into a tree, you could. If you wanted to switch vessels, and you could do that if we knew how to do it. I think they know how to do it, is where I'm
I
going
think
with
that here's what I was going to say before you said that I am certain that, and some of this is based on being in their presence, because you do pick up on things. And actually, the crew, or a lot of time, we're with the assistants and we're with the nanny, and you do pick up on conversation, and some of it is telepathic, the frequency. And I am certain that there are those that I have flown that are some type of AI clone type. And you would say, well, how did you pick up on that? And I can't tell you for sure how. It's something that it's a difference in their eyes. It's a difference in that they're not eating like we do, or they have an odd diet. They the lack of emotion.
Yes,
Very
empathy. Yep.
very scripted, limited language sometimes. There was one I flew that is, I mean, he's definitely famous, but it's more in the like Silicon Valley type famous. I've flown all those guys, and there was one that I flew once that I wouldn't say I was scared, but I flew him and he was alone. He was extremely thin. He had a very, now I want to say this before alien, look at the word alien, I think there's some sort of agenda with the alien thing. So I'm not saying that. However, he did look very like reptilian like, and
you said alien, a lion. A lion could be a lion, could be like a vessel. Is that what you were going with that? Not lion as in the animal, but a lion, like I'm lying into this vessel. Sorry, go ahead.
That's exactly right. But also, I think that the agenda they give us as far as aliens, even in the truth community, there's a lot of alien stuff. I do think that a lot of that is to throw us off.
Yep.
To what they really are. I mean, I do believe extraterrestrials are really hybrids or humans, but that I do know that there's a lot of underground activity. Even people I've flown, I know that when they get off the plane, they go underground. You do pick up on this sort of thing, and alien, yes, absolutely. But so there is something not human. I can attest to that. I have been that. Yes. Is it clones? It's not like the NPC, like let's say your family or your friends that are NPCs, because if you talk about some of this stuff, they're not gonna, you've gotten the reaction, I'm sure.
Yeah, you get it with the Mandela effects, especially, or
that's a big
spirituality stuff. You get it. You say, when you can get somebody. I talk about this a lot of time when I was first coming on to speaking about this. I would say anybody you can get off of their opinion within like 2 seconds is just, there's something wrong with that. And then I mean wrong with it, like, I'm not empathetic towards whatever that might be, or however that might be, consciousness wise, a limited version of consciousness, whatever it might be programmed. But you shouldn't be able to tell somebody that Ed McMahon never worked Public Clearinghouse, and meanwhile they just said it 2 seconds ago. That's just crazy to me.
I know. Well, to me, Mandela effect, what's hit me some time ago is that it's a misnomer also. It's Mandela. Like Mandela is a type of consciousness. When you slip into other dimensions, you will see Mandelas, or like the what do you call, you'll see it's different angles. The Mandela, though, even when people do acid trips and things, they see the Mandelas. So I believe that that's what it's really related to consciousness, and that, just like you said a moment ago, how you were saying we can jump around in different interdimensions, into different dimensions. Well, right. And you go, so we knew that Ed McMahon, you knew it, I knew it, we knew that, hey, hang on, you're not going to tell me this didn't happen. And then, like, you're sitting with a friend at dinner and you're saying this, and they're like, what are you talking about? That's not how. It's almost like because you said you didn't like to say the word download, or like a script, like they're on a different frequency. Would you say? I would
they're
say
on a program. They're in their own program reality, however they are doing that.
Right. So, but what you were saying about consciousness makes Mandela effect make more sense. Which is what what my thoughts have come to too, that I've been hit with, that we do they attach to us? In other words, could it also be dead consciousness?
Well, so I don't do this a lot because it has to like kind of hit me before I go down rabbit holes. But I chopped up the man and the Della from your etymology about a week ago, and I got, obviously, man, and we know what that is. It's just the vessel of human. Actually, there was some etymology of Della that said split or to create, and I thought,
right. That's
this
right.
is exactly correct.
Yep.
This is exactly correct, and this is the splitting of humanity in terms of recognizing who is conscious and sovereign and who is not. And I thought this in 2019, 2020, when obviously the facts were coming out, you could see it very simply. You could ask questions, and yet they were trying to split humanity up in terms of programmed and free will of who was doing what. And I just, everywhere you seem to look, you kind of come across these things where I think they're trying to split people up. It's not a Republican Democrat thing. It's not a left right. It's not it's a consciousness separation. And I don't know what the purpose is. If it's a negative thing or a positive thing. Some people,
they've got to keep, right. It's the checkerboard, right? The Freemason, look at the black and white. They have got to keep duality. They have got to keep the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative. They've got to keep it going, even in the truth community. And sometimes, and I was on the flat earth thing a lot, and to some degree I still am. However, this is not a place for me. And I felt that hit me like a hard wave when I've been in those deep moments, that we're not in a place. I think that's very hard for some. I can't spend too much time on flat and round. There's a toroidal field. There's a field. There's an energy. I think it's similar to an eye, actually. If there were a shape that were around it. But look at the word firmament, for example. Look at firmament. What is the last part of the word firmament? It's meant, just like government. It seals the mind, right? The glass plasma, which is essentially it's plasma, and it's a sealing of the mind. The firm there, it is a container of consciousness. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the reason I don't believe in space. First of all, I went and bought a telescope a few years ago and looked up, and all I saw were these luminescing lights, and you can hear you can hear the science people going, well, it's the refraction of the atmosphere. And you look at the moon, which they tell us is 200,000 miles away, but you can't see 7 miles away in fog, but you can see the moon 200,000 miles, or the sun 93 billion miles, a million miles away. This shit doesn't even make sense. And the one that I keep coming back to the past few years is the shades of the moon, the stages of the moon. And you look in your phone now and you can see what shade of the moon it is. And the last few nights here, it's been the Cheshire Cat moon, where it's just illuminated the bottom part. Right. And yet you look on anything that says stages of the moon, and there's not one of those anywhere to be found. But people don't even look at that. You show somebody that, and you go, "What stage of the moon is this? Look at the moon," and they go, "Huh, that's weird." And I go, "Yeah, it's weird that you're not asking more questions. It's weird that it's right in front of your face, but you can't even ask the stupidest questions." And then the phone will say, "Oh, it's a waxing crescent or something," and you're like, "This isn't what that is. What the hell is this?"
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Well, I do believe that the moon is well, like you were saying, Mandela effect. So I believe that for me, vowels and everything I've written and researched and read, vowels are interchangeable. But look at the word man. If you that could also be from moon. Monday is moon, month, monitor, all related. Money is moon. Everything is related to the moon. And is man connected with the moon? Yes, absolutely. I believe that it's a portal, and it's where when the NDEs, the great white light, for me is the moon. And it's an artificial construct, obviously. It's in a contained field, in an energy field. It's a plasma, and we're inside of an energy field, and it's with us. I mean, like you're saying, that is ridiculous. How can these people, it's so frustrating, believe that it's 93 the numbers are so big to just the more ridiculous it is, the more they believe it. And you're showing them your phone, and you're like,
they got to make the math fit. The math has to fit, and the
but
math
it doesn't. It doesn't, like you said. Well, but I think that it's only 50, 60, 70 miles up. And when we've flown as high as 44,000 feet. I mean, the sun and the moon, I feel so close. It just, even when you're outside and the sun, I mean, but the ridiculous numbers, to me, is just more evidence for those of us that can see. It's frustrating sometimes when you are around the NPCs, and I hate to call it. Sounds awful to say.
Oh no, I'm over it. I'm over. I've been watching this guy on YouTube, and the last few days, getting my stupid stuff in, and it's I'm gonna tell you the channel, and he does a lot of these things where he'll show people doing dumb things, talking about their credit card debt or their his name is it Zach Rios, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, he talks, and he just shows videos of TikTokers basically crying over either their debt or their bad decisions, and you're like, you just look at them and you go, there's no way anybody's home in there. There's no way. And I'll post on my channel. I'll post a Family Feud dumb answers, and you watch the people react to these answers, and you're like, there's no way anybody's in there. There's just no way. You can, not have empathy or whatever. I just choose to treat everybody like they were me, but I look at them and I just shake my head all the time. I used to go into a McDonald's line a few years ago in Savannah. I know people tell me McDonald's, whatever, but there's 2 drive-through lines, and one line would be full and the other line would be wide open. And I'm just looking at people driving by them, getting into the open line going, and then I watch behind me and nobody gets into my line. And I'm going, is anybody really? I mean, there's no way anybody's in these cars. And nobody's in there, because it's just so obvious that you can't even make this stuff up.
So it's almost like, but think about this, okay? It's almost like what you're saying. So you notice things that other people don't notice, obviously, and so do I. So there's patterns, right? Everything is patterns. And I am what is revealed to me more and more is, and now I figured out how to gauge and actually line up with the past. So I'll say, okay, I'm going out. Show me somebody in jean shorts. I know this sounds
You'll
ridiculous.
see it.
So one of my most recent ones was every time I go out, I see someone smoking a cigarette. And I mean, like every time I would go out in my next scene, because a scene is a scenario. Scenes like movie scenes, because you're like on a movie set. So every time I go out, I would see patterns of the same. It's almost like if you think about the eye, the blackest part of your eye, the pupil, which is what they call a student, right? A pupil.
Mhm.
And that is like our virtual reality headset. So you go out and you see all these cars and you're like, but I know there's no one, but see, an NPC wouldn't pick up on that. But you're
No.
a real character. So you're a real soul energy being. And so am
And
I. So we're
I
picking
was
up.
gonna say when you were talking about your letters, I was actually gonna interrupt you, but I didn't want to
Go
at
ahead.
the time. What you're doing with your letters is your pattern recognition. That's what that is.
Yes.
It's all
Yes.
pattern recognition, which is
Yes.
ironic. Not really ironic. It's more symbolic now. But IQ tests are all pattern recognition. That's all they are.
Yes.
They're not about. It's not about what you know. It's not about how smart you are. It's about pattern recognition. And the more patterns you can recognize, the one-offs and the things like that, the more that they say you're intelligent. So, when you look at these things and you look at the Mandela effects and you're recognizing patterns and you are trying to ask questions, make sense of the world about what we're doing here, what I'm incarnated to do, or if I'm not reincarnated at all, if I'm just centering my awareness on this
Yeah.
existence right now, you're doing the same thing, and we're trying to figure out how to make that to our advantage. At least I am. I
Well,
sat in the soul trap for a minute, and those people just they don't bother me. They boggle my mind that you could sit in the soul trap and be a victim the whole time, and then once you're done experiencing that, you just stay there. And I don't know what you do after that. Do you just keep saying that you're just going to be a victim and you're going to be recycled?
no.
I mean, what do you
No.
do with it?
No. Exactly. You release from that. Absolutely not. That's why you don't stay stuck on the flat round argument either, cuz then you're
Yep.
no different than at a football game on one side, right? Or the right or the left. So, and this just feeds them. It just feeds the eaters. So no, absolutely. Yeah, the pattern, I wanted to say, there's symbology in language, and it has helped me to keep me not in the mindset of the trap, because we don't want to be in that trap mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We're already in a contained field, right? Once you've figured out there is some type of plasma, and we're in a contained field. And I see this through language too.